Hey there, welcome to Terror Recaps. Today I'm gonna explain a survival thriller film full of action, horror and suspense, titled The Curve. Brace yourself and enjoy. The movie unfolds in the vast desert landscape in Denver with Mallory, a soon-to-be bride driving to her sister's place in order to prepare for her upcoming nuptials. Despite the joyous occasion, Mallory seems distant and unenthused about the prospect of getting married in just a week's time. As she makes her way through the deserted roads, she video chats with her sister Ella, who expresses concern about her sister's happiness with the upcoming marriage. Mallory responds with a forced smile, brushing off her sister's worries and hangs up the call. As she drives further, she decides to take a shortcut through a secluded service road. Unfortunately, her car breaks down, leaving her stranded and unable to call for help as there is no cell signal in the area. She tries her best to fix the engine but fails. With nothing else to do, Mallory tries to make the best of the situation, but even the simplest task like opening a soda can end in disaster. Suddenly she is approached by a stranger named Christian, who offers to help fix her car. With his expertise, Christian quickly gets the engine running, and Mallory is back on the road. Feeling grateful for Christian's help, Mallory begins to consider offering him a ride, and soon realizes that he is not only talkative but also quite odd. Christian speaks at length about fate bringing them together and begins to act in a peculiar manner, leaving Mallory feeling uneasy. Soon she realizes he is a pervert and inappropriate with his words. Fed up, she pulls over and demands he gets out, but the guy threatens her with a knife. Mallory continues to drive, but then notices that Christian isn't wearing a seatbelt. In an effort to get rid of him, she speeds up and crashes the car into a guardrail. The impact leaves Mallory hanging upside down in her car with her foot trapped, while Christian is thrown from the vehicle but is still conscious. When he realizes Mallory's predicament, he tells her to free herself before walking away, leaving her stranded. Having left with no other choice, she screams for help. The night gets colder as it darkens. With no one around, she tries to keep warm by putting on some extra clothes and turning on the car's heater. The headlights of the car will scare away any wild animals. So she turns it on and struggles to pass the night. The next morning, Mallory wakes up to find that she is still trapped in the car, surrounded by nothing but darkness and despair. To make matters worse, she is running short of food and water. A while later, Christian appears looking happy and healthy with a satisfied expression on his face. He takes pleasure in taunting Mallory by eating and drinking in front of her, and once again speaking about how fate is a funny thing. He further informs her that he has found a cabin that is currently empty, but he thinks a family lives there. He also tells her that she may not survive another night given her current condition, which only adds to her distress. Christian then leaves Mallory alone, shouting and begging for help. As the third night falls, Mallory is fortunate enough to find a lighter in her car, which she uses to ignite and have some light and warmth in the cold night. She falls asleep but is soon woken up by a bunch of rats who seem to be having fun tormenting her body. In a moment of desperation, she kills one of the rats and consumes it for sustenance. The next morning, Mallory's phone rings, giving her a glimmer of hope. However, before she can answer the call, Christian appears again. She immediately hides it. He reveals that he has locked up the family in that cabin, and tells Mallory that he is going to help her escape. Then after snatching her phone, he hands her a saw, telling her that she needs to cut off her foot, not the door, to free herself, as this is her only option. He leaves Mallory alone once again, with the weight of this decision hanging over her. She clutches the saw tightly in her hands as she thinks about what Christian had instructed her to do. However, she eventually lets out a loud scream of frustration as the night sets in. Her thirst intensifies and she starts to feel parched from being without water for a prolonged period of time. Suddenly the heavens answer her prayers as a heavy rainstorm begins, providing her with much needed hydration. As she tunes into the radio, she hears that the roads are becoming flooded due to the rain and people are resorting to taking smaller roads as the main ones are impassable. Just then a car pulls up beside her, and to her horror it turns out to be Christian. As he parks his car, Mallory quickly devises a plan. She smears the blood of the dead rat onto her foot and pretends to be dead. She makes it seem as though she died while trying to cut her foot off. Christian approaches her with his flashlight to check on her, but as he gets close enough, Mallory springs into action and stabs him. She then steals his car keys and locks the car before tossing the keys into the dark of the night, where Christian won't be able to find them. Mallory's plan is that someone might come across the parked car and call for help. Moments later, a car approaches and it turns out to be a police car. Mallory desperately tries to get the attention of the officer by screaming, but the loud thunder from the storm drowns out her voice. Meanwhile, Christian pretends to be an innocent victim who was wounded in the storm and asks the officer for a ride to the nearest cabin. Despite Mallory's continued attempts to scream for help, no one can hear her over the noise of the storm. She realizes that if she doesn't get out of there soon, she would never make it. The words of Christian ring in her head as she tries to find the courage to carry out his instructions. But she finally reaches her breaking point and decides to get rid of it. She starts trying to cut her leg off but only manages to make a few shallow cuts before her car starts to move due to the flooding. The door suddenly opens and she is able to escape. She is in dire need of medical help and needs to get out of there as soon as possible. As Mallory approaches the river, she moves away from the area and spots a cabin in the distance. She hears someone scream coming from the cabin and becomes worried, especially when she considers the cabin that Christian told her about. She quickly moves towards the cabin, only to trigger a bear trap on the ground with a stick she is holding. Mallory starts to think that Christian might be inside the cabin and cautiously moves around it. When she quietly enters the cabin, she witnesses Christian killing the police officer who helped him previously and holding a young girl named Katie as a hostage. Mallory also finds the homeowners dead. She somehow sneaks into the room and tries to set the girl free, while Christian changes into the police uniform to make his next move. Mallory hears Christian's footsteps coming her way and quickly hides, just before he enters the room. She grabs the police officer's gun and aims it at Christian, threatening to shoot if he moves. Soon a scuffle follows between the two. During the struggle, Mallory tells Katie to run away and she fights with Christian. Mallory manages to escape from his grasp and disappears from the room. When Christian enters the room looking for her, Mallory is nowhere to be found. However, Mallory comes back and beats him by pushing him off a second-story balcony. Christian falls and crushes his leg in a bear trap. Mallory limps downstairs with Katie and gives Christian his knife, offering him the same chance that he gave her. Mallory reflects on fate and tells Christian that maybe it was meant to be like this after they first met. The film ends with Christian suffering from his wound while thinking about Mallory's words, while Mallory and Katie continue on the road in search of help. Thanks for being with us. Please like, share and subscribe for more interesting movie summaries like this.